Russia will end its war if Kiev surrenders the entirety of 4 regions claimed by Moscow and abandons bid to join NATO. IDF strikes rocket launcher that it says Hezbollah used to attack northern town. Fighter jets also strike weapons depot in Rameh, a building used by Hezbollah in Hola, and additional infrastructure. Cyril Ramaphosa re-elected South African president after coalition deal. Lawmakers in Cape Town vote overwhelmingly to put 71-year-old leader back in office for 5 more years.
Honorable
Demonstrators clash with riot police in the French city of Lyon. Scenes occurred on the same evening as planned anti-far right demonstrations in the country's 3rd largest city. President Vladimir Putin has said that Russia will end the war in Ukraine only if Kiev agrees to drop its NATO ambitions and hand over the entirety of 4 provinces claimed by Moscow. Kiev has immediately rejected this offer. His conditions are diametrically at odds with what Ukraine is demanding. He has also repeated his call for Ukraine's denazification based on what Kiev calls a slur against its leadership. Putin has further called the Ukraine Peace Summit a distraction. Meanwhile, Ukraine said the conditions were absurd.
What the organizers of the meeting in Switzerland are proposing is another trick to distract everyone from the causes of the Ukrainian crisis, reverse cause and effect, and set the discussion on the wrong track.
What can one say about these messages? It's an ultimatum. These messages are not different from all the past ultimatums. Realistically, what we are seeing, what we are witnessing is a resurgence of Nazism. It's a new wave. Now the Nazism is Russian. What Putin says is the same. To give him part of our territory, both occupied and unoccupied, he is talking about parts of our state. He says he will then stop and there will not be any frozen conflict.
On the other hand, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin at NATO headquarters in Brussels said that Putin is in no position to make demands on Ukraine to end the war.
You know, Putin has illegally occupied sovereign Ukrainian territory. He is not in any position to dictate to Ukraine what they must do to bring about a peace. I think that's exactly the kind of behavior that we don't want to see. We don't want to see a leader of one country wake up one day and decide that he wants to erase borders and annex the territory of his neighbor.
The situation has, however, not changed NATO's support for Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that NATO will assume a greater role in coordinating arms supplies to Ukraine. Furthermore, Hungary gave up its resistance to the Ukraine support package NATO aims to agree at its Washington summit in July. It comprises the financial pledge and the transfer to NATO of the coordination of arms supplies and training. During a visit by Stoltenberg to Budapest, Prime Minister Viktor Orban said that his country will not block NATO's decision on providing support for Ukraine, but had agreed that it will not be involved. From adopting a human-centric approach for artificial intelligence to creating a green era, Indian Prime Minister Modi has called for a collective effort from G7 countries to address some of the most pressing problems in the world is facing today. In his first foreign visit after assuming office as the Prime Minister of India for the 3rd consecutive term, the Indian Prime Minister addressed the outreach session of the G7 summit, where he spoke on varied issues right from artificial intelligence, net zero, and global south. With regard to the global south, Prime Minister Modi said it is bearing the brunt of global uncertainties and tensions. Prime Minister Modi said it is India's responsibility to put priorities and concerns of the concerned countries on the world stage. PM Modi also urged the world leaders to make efforts for a green era, emphasizing collective efforts to create a better future. Modi said India's approach in the field of energy is based on 4 principles: availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. He highlighted India's commitment to green energy and sustainability. PM Modi said India is the first country to fulfill all the commitments taken under COP before time. They are now making efforts to fulfill their commitment to achieve the target of net zero by 2070. The Indian Prime Minister also called for ending the monopoly in technology. He believes it must be made creative to lay the foundation of an inclusive society. He said India is among the first few nations to formulate a national strategy on artificial intelligence. U.S. has imposed sanctions on Israeli group for attacking humanitarian aid convoys bound for Gaza. The sanctions target a group called Salve 9 over activities including blocking, harassing, and damaging aid shipments. The group is known to have ties to Israeli army reservists and Jewish settlers in the West Bank. On May 13th, members of Salve 9 looted and then set fire to 2 aid trucks near the West Bank city of Hebron. The group said after the incident that it acted to stop supplies from reaching Hamas. According to State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller, they have repeatedly sought to thwart the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza along the route from Jordan to Gaza, transiting the West Bank. He said they have damaged aid trucks and dumped life-saving humanitarian aid on the road. Washington's move freezes any assets the group holds under U.S. jurisdiction. It also bars Americans from dealing with the group. The financial sanctions will be imposed under an executive order on West Bank violence that President Joe Biden signed in February. The order was previously used to impose restrictions on Jewish settlers involved in attacks on Palestinians. A State Department official has said that they are targeting individuals and entities that threaten the peace, security, and stability of the West Bank, regardless of religion, ethnicity, or location. The official also said that U.S. has raised this at all levels of the Israeli government and expects Israeli authorities to do the same. According to lawyers, Israel has arrested 4 of those involved in the May 13th attack, including a minor. Moving on, Cyril Ramaphosa has been re-elected as South Africa's new president. This comes after the country's second biggest party, Democratic Alliance, says it will back the African National Congress leader following a government coalition deal. Take a look.
The Government of National Unity's presidential candidate will come from the largest party inside the grouping, being President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Once unthinkable, the deal between the two parties that are poles apart in their ideology became the most momentous political shift in South Africa since Nelson Mandela led the ANC to victory. The 1994 elections that marked the end of apartheid, the ANC lost its majority for the first time in an election on May 29th, and has spent 2 weeks locked in intense behind-the-scenes talks with other parties that came down to the wire on Friday morning as a new parliament was convening. Shortly after, the meeting of South Africa's newly elected parliament took place on Friday in Cape Town. The convene saw the country's chief of South Africa is swearing in MPs in batches ahead of election of speaker. The radical leftist economic freedom fighters have refused They have refused to join a national unity government that includes right-wing parties. Jacob Zuma's new party, MK, has disputed the May 29th election results, and its MPs boycotted the first sitting of the 400-member assembly.
Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God." Those who took the oath, raise your right hands and say, "Help me, so help."
Now, as the former U.S. President Donald Trump celebrated his 78th birthday on Friday, Americans focus on the fact that he is just 3 years younger than his 2024 presidential rival Joe Biden. Trump has often made President Joe Biden's advancing age one of his main campaign rallying points. His team regularly stands out videos of Biden stumbling or stuttering, looking worn out, or appearing disoriented at public events. But that in no way proves that he is an energetic alternative to the 81-year-old Biden. At a campaign event in Las Vegas on Sunday, the fury Trump launched into a speech that Democrats called unhinged as it veered from shark attacks to electric batteries and electrocution. In recent months, Trump has confused the leaders of Turkey and Hungary. He has warned that the world is headed for a second, not third, world war. He has also called fictional serial killer Hannibal Lecter a wonderful man. The fact also remains that unlike Biden, Trump is no longer subject to the same medical examinations that Biden must undergo as the occupant of the Oval Office. In mid-November, Trump got a letter from a doctor that said he was in excellent health and that he had even lost weight. The letter did not say how much weight the fast food-loving former president had lost. At the start of the year, Trump even told supporters that he recently took a cognitive exam and aced it. A tropical disturbance that brought a rare flash flood emergency to much of southern Florida delayed flights at two of the state's largest airports and left vehicles waterlogged and stalled in some of the region's lowest-lying streets. Although Maureen can trigger additional isolated Florida flooding, forecasters say the strong persistent storms in southern parts of the state appear to have passed. Some neighborhood streets in the Miami and Fort Lauderdale areas still have standing water, although it is rapidly receding. Residents of the Espin Lakes apartment complex in northeast Miami-Dade were trying to clean up their homes Friday following days of severe flooding. The aftermath of torrential downpours that deluged South Florida weighs in on Broward County Street. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis held a media briefing and said that while more rain is coming, it's likely to be more typical of South Florida afternoon showers this time of the year. DeSantis said that the state has deployed about 100 pumps in addition to what cities and counties are using to try to clear water from streets. Forecasters are expecting 8 to 13 hurricanes in the Atlantic this season, 7 of which could build into a major storms. Overall, some 17 to 25 named tropical storms are expected. An average hurricane season produces about 14 named storms, of which 7 become hurricanes. In recent years, the frequency and intensity of hurricanes have increased, linked to warming sea temperatures caused by higher carbon dioxide levels in atmosphere. In Morocco, the economic crisis and the ongoing drought are resulting in acute shortage of animals for the Eid sacrifices. Many Moroccans are returning empty-handed from the market. The drought implies the lack of grass on which the cattle feeds. This leaves the cattle feeder with a singular option of buying expensive fodder that they mostly cannot afford. Take a look at this report. Now we turn our attention to the worsening economic situation in Myanmar. The country has been in turmoil since 2021 military coup, and the impacts are becoming increasingly severe. Take a look at this next report for more details.
Myanmar's economy is in a dire state. The World Bank has slashed its growth forecast for the fiscal year to 1%. citing the ongoing political turmoil and escalating civil war as key factors. This stagnant growth comes hand in hand with a surge in poverty. The World Bank estimates that 32.1% of the population now lives below the national poverty line, a level not seen since 2015. The conflict has also displaced over 3 million people within the country, further straining resources and disrupting livelihoods. Businesses are facing a double whammy: labour shortages due to a conscription plan implemented by the junta and a sharp decline in cross-border trade. Land border trade with key partners like China and Thailand has plummeted, with exports dropping by 44% and imports falling by 71%. This disruption to trade has further weakened the Myanmar economy. The value of the Myanmar currency, the kyat, has been volatile, leading to inflation and making it difficult for businesses to plan and budget. Shortages of foreign currency are also hindering the import of essential goods and raw materials. The energy sector is another area of concern. Electricity production is expected to decline, leading to power outages that will disrupt manufacturing and other economic activities. With limited access to foreign currency, it's difficult for Myanmar to import the necessary resources to improve its energy infrastructure. The economic outlook for Myanmar is bleak. The World Bank predicts little respite for households in the near to medium term. This means that the current hardships such as poverty, inflation and lack of basic necessities are likely to persist for some time. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now for some updates from World of Sports. Italy begin their European Championship title defense later today as they take on Albania in Dortmund. The Italians may be defending champions, but not many see them as one of the main contenders for the title. Italy arrive in Germany unbeaten in 6 games, yet the shadow of failing to qualify for the last World Cup looms large in the background. Head coach took over the national team in August last year. Since then, the Italians have not lost a game. But an extremely tough task awaits them in the proverbial group of death. With games against Spain and Croatia coming up, this is the easiest fixture for Italy on their paper in their group. Anything other than a win is simply not an option.
The spirit will be the same we had 3 years ago when we were European champions. We will try and reproduce those magical nights. The team is ready and I will give my 100%. I'll try to give my teammates some advice about what we did 3 years ago. But the squad is ready, so they won't necessarily need my advice. But those survivors from 3 years ago, as me, Jorginho, Nicolo Barella, we will certainly give them a few pointers that will hopefully allow us to do well in this competition.
Albania will be making just their second appearance at the European Championships. They topped their qualifying group, and although the Albanians have got an extremely tough draw, Albania are ranked 66th in the world and have the luxury of playing with hardly any pressure. Let's take a look at the top stories from the world of entertainment.